Can everybody hear me? There we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan Brierley. I am the Chief Experience Officer at OpenFin. I look after all things user experience and design, and I've worked at many financial applications. And most recently, actually, we've been doing a lot of discovery and user experience work across a number of organizations to really find out what makes things tick. But tonight, we're going to be talking about FDC3 and interop. Before we get into that, I am joined by two fantastic guests who I'm going to have introduce themselves now. So Joe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Joe Cappitelli. I'm the general manager for Dow Jones News. That would include properties like Wall Street Journal, Barron's, MarketWatch, and really we are focused on financial services. I lead the P&L and partnerships like the one we have with OpenFin. So thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Christopher?
Christopher Wilson. I head up the Innovation and Design Group at Ness Digital Engineering. We traditionally do a lot of engineering at scale, provide delivery predictability for our clients. In recent years, we have very much invested in the what we're building versus just the how. And with that sort of investment around experience and innovation, we've found OpenFin and FDC3 a very interesting tool for us, and one that we can use in very surprising ways.
Yeah, and absolutely. So you heard a big part of this focus is within user experience, it's within the products themselves and what they can offer end users. FDC3 came about in around 2017, launched by OpenFin with a collaboration from a number of different organizations. What it really does is it allows your applications to talk to each other. More than that, it allows those applications to also talk to vendor applications, and they don't need to do a lot of work to do so. They use a standard. They use a basic approach, which means that you don't even need to know what else is going on the desktop to create an emergent experience across all of these applications. Dow Jones is doing some fantastic work, which you can see at the booth over there. But it'd be interesting to hear, how have you guys seen sort of FDC3 evolve since it was launched, and how are you leveraging it?
So we're still relatively new to the game with FDC and interoperability. We were actually brought to the table by a customer, which was really kind of nice, makes it kind of simple, and it's always easy to it's always good to be able to respond to a customer request. I think we've learned a lot. It's been like 2 years pretty much, and the thing that we've learned along the way, which is pretty much what you just said, was the interoperability and the benefit that it delivers. So because all the firms that are part of the community are using the same standard, it makes integrating our content, in particular our news and data, into different applications, different data sets, that much more easy for us, but also for customers who want to do that in a more customized way. So it's been really a very good journey so far.
Do you have any examples of how you're integrating with customers' applications?
Yeah, we have, and some of them are on display back in the back of the room on the right. Delivering our news and content into client holdings, which wasn't anything that we could have done all that easy before by ourselves. And we're able to, the other thing that's really nice that I think I'll mention in different ways throughout this session is to be able to deliver it directly to the customer, any innovation that we're working on right now. So we're using AI and different technologies to experiment, and we're innovating on that, but we can deliver it directly to the customer when it's ready. So that's been great.
Fantastic. And Christopher, what have you seen?
Well, I mean, I think if the core question is what has the change been for FDC3, I think that in the earlier days when we were doing solutions is that the entry point that we would come in is that we have existing applications, and FDC3 and OpenFin get layered on as part of an existing ecosystem that's already there. And I think the change that we've seen over time is how FDC3 can factor into the design portion of it, and the entry point being much earlier in the innovation process. And instead of having existing applications, how do we think about starting from OpenFin, starting from an FDC3 where the whole architecture is one of micro applications, and that we have a lot of flexibility in thinking about how we move forward versus, I think there was an aspect of the early days where it's like we're cleaning up a bit of a mess or creating a better situation from something that seems suboptimal in the way that we're working with. And I think that we're working with it in new ways that allow us to get ahead of that game.
No, absolutely. I think in design, we're always thinking, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if, as the user clicks through these applications, they all talk to each other? And it's amazing to be told that's just not possible, or we need to work with 24 other teams to be able to make that work. And I think FDC3 has made it so that actually different teams can join it and at different points in the cycle, right?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that when we look at is that, like, what is the litmus test for when is FDC3, when is it the right solution for what we're talking about? And I think that, the obvious case is that we're talking about workflows that span multiple applications that tend to be siloed in particular ways and don't play well with one another. But I think that, now that we see, the ability to be able to stitch together those particular experiences in new ways, and that you don't have to go in and really rewrite the service layer and consolidate lots of applications to get experiences that where you get many productivity gains and things around that.
And have you seen the similar sort of like speed gains at Dow Jones?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that mostly what we've been focused on is innovation and really trying to save the user time. So we grew up as pretty much a feed in an API business that would go directly to clients or through third parties, where we had very little input over what the user would see. And we focused on the quality of news, which we still do. But now with this platform, we're able to kind of fulfill some of the workflows and be able to save people time in ways that they say is very helpful for us. So that's been a great part of the journey. So some of the examples I mentioned before, the news into holdings, but we've got a really robust alerting system now. We've also got the ability to take breaking news banners directly from the Wall Street Journal newsroom and put it on the module that we've built. And so we've got a whole bunch of new experiences that we're creating ourselves and delivering it to customers, and in some cases to partners themselves. We're happy to have everybody take advantage of it.
I think the biggest thing about that is it's not a standalone Dow Jones experience, right? Dow Jones is playing as part of the wider desktop.
Yeah, I think the surprise, for me, was how much third-party platforms, partners that we have would seek to take advantage of this. I didn't necessarily go into that with that understanding, so that's been part of the journey. But third parties that we've traditionally worked with, where we dropped an API or a feed off, have been very quick to adopt some of the things that we've employed. And that's been really refreshing and rewarding. And ultimately, it comes down to the customer. How do we benefit them in a quicker, more meaningful way?
Yeah, I mean, the standardization, bringing those key benefits across all number of different vendors, I mean, that must make your life much easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does. I mean, once again, for us, on the innovation side of the spectrum, it's very important, like if we're doing an MVP or something of that nature, that scope control and time to market is huge. And the first thing that usually falls is anything that we're integrating with, because integration is very hard, it's very fiddly, and having something like an open standard with FDC3 allows us to get a much more realistic situation when we're launching an MVP in the market, because we can provide experiences that give a kind of the full ecosystem of what we're trying to achieve without having to make assumptions about what the ultimate experience will be.
And then how do you define what that ultimate experience is going to be? Like, what makes a good ultimate experience?
Well, I mean, as far as making the good ultimate experience, I think that, we have the standards, we have the platform with OpenFin, but there's a lot of design thinking and process around that to get to the experience that you need. And I think that, applying that with rigor, starting out with, what are the business outcomes or the success criteria, I think particularly for, workflows that span multiple applications, as we've talked about here, I think very nuanced personas that map to what the particular journeys are going to be and the jobs to be done is a very important aspect of getting to what you're trying to do with the ultimate experience. And I think that part of the process, even though it's well known, I think there's a lot of nuance in how it needs to be undertaken.
Kept putting those together, getting those prototypes ready, pitching that whole overall experience.
Yeah, and I think actually what you bring up is that the prototyping is a big part of it as well. And I think, once again, on the time to market, providing value very quickly, I mean, I think the platform allows us to get things in front of customers and getting data back in more meaningful ways than we could do it without it.
I mean, what's interesting about that is we've been with Dow Jones across, from the beginning of your journey, really using some of this FDC3, using OpenFin and launching. You guys have moved so quickly. Do you have any sort of feelings on sort of how you've planned out that roadmap and how you've said, this is the experience that we want to get to?
Well, I would say the initial part of it was there was a learning curve, right? Without a doubt. So I don't know that we started out quickly, but I think we've kind of reached our groove, so to speak, right now, where we're starting to hit kind of a critical mass of functionality, which you can see some of on the back of the room. So we feel pretty good about where we are right now, and I think as we've learned more, we're coming up with new innovative ways to come up with new workflows. We've also met a lot of partners that we wouldn't have necessarily known before. So some firms in the OMS space, firms in the CRM space. So, being able to attach our content to client portfolios, but client records, giving advisors a reason to call is one good thing. Somebody's trading, looking at their OMS, is there breaking news? We would have never actually knew about that in the past, and this becomes so much more real now. And I think that's what I mean by we're hitting critical mass. We are starting to actually see the fruits of the labor, and early on, it was a big learning curve, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think what's next though, right? So we heard a little bit about cloud interop. Are we going to be seeing Newswire's taking from your watch list on your mobile next? Like, what are we excited to see?
I think those are all on the table. I mean, look, we sit on a tremendous amount of content, so I'm just but one part of Dow Jones, the real-time news business, but we have a news aggregation product called Factiva. We have a very robust risk and compliance business around financial crime. I mentioned before the other properties, the Journal, Barron's, and so forth. So I think those other data sets, as they become required and needed, will start to make their way into that workflow. That's one of the more exciting things that I'm excited about. And I think it'll wind up being that we'll go beyond even the traditional types of firms that we're talking to now.
Oh, what do you mean by that? Do you have any tips, or do you want me to move quickly past that question?
Move fast past that. It'll probably be somebody else's role in my company. I don't want to speak for them.
Absolutely. So, Christopher, we've sort of alluded to FDC3. We've talked about the financial desktop. We've talked about maybe going beyond that. What about you? What do you see in that space?
Well, I mean, I think the big area of opportunity is, we've talked about across applications, the interoperability, but I think across devices. And I mean, obviously, in the introduction here, that's, kind of the next areas to see. And I think particularly when we're, once again, using OpenFin for things like venture building versus just experience modernization, that there's lots of opportunity to say is like, okay, how can we do things where that interoperability, goes between, mobile and the desktop and various things like that. I think that's an area of tremendous opportunity for us.
The opportunity is always exciting, but there's something you said earlier about cleaning up messes, which has really stuck with me. And some of the biggest messes that I think Interop has helped clean up are these things that I sort of call end-user managed applications, which is another sort of mouthful. But it's where, someone goes into Excel and they create their own application using a VB script, and then suddenly it's managing trading for an entire desk. What kind of messes have you seen, and how has FDC3 maybe tidied that up?
Well, I mean, I think certainly as anyone that's worked in the financial industry is that we see all sorts of businesses that are run out of Excel spreadsheets in particular ways. And I think, a big part of what we do is to be able to, take those particular situations and, put them in applications that are sustainable in particular ways. And obviously, FDC3, once again, instead of having to go into that and create applications that are siloed, you put things within the larger context of what the true workflows are and how they should be used. And I think ultimately, in terms of applying the types of design thinking that it encourages, is that you get something that's more modular, that you're able to grow with, and then more extensible. And I think that's both from a software perspective, but I think it's from a design perspective, and I think also from a product perspective. And I think all those things aren't exactly the same. but I think it serves those purposes.
Absolutely, and you know exactly what you're working with when you have FDC3, right? It's a set standard, and as long as you're sort of working within that, everything can kind of talk to each other in the same way, right?
Exactly, and once again, I mean, I think it's important to understand when it's the right solution and when there needs to be something like a different type of data solution, let's say on the back end, and what the particular lines are. And you know, I think with all technologies, with all platforms, it's finding the sweet spot. I think it's particularly easy with OpenFin and FDC3 to find that particular sweet spot.
Fantastic. I did want to touch briefly on emergent experiences, but I do think we've run out of time. Thank you to our fantastic speakers. I hope you guys found it valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.